We're ready to, technology's functioning. Okay, and good in the back streaming to the community. Thank you for the thumbs up. I will then call to order this meeting of the Westland City Council. It's Monday, August 4th, 2025. It's our one meeting of the month of August. And the first item of business is on the agenda is to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So we will do that. And please rise and face the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. And now take a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the agenda for the August 4th, 2025 Westland City Council meeting.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for the August 4th, 2025 City Council meeting. Any discussion on the agenda? Good topics tonight, so thank you. I will call the roll then, please.
Councillor Bonnington,
Yes.
Councillor Brike,
Yes.
Council President Baumgartner,
Yes.
Councillor Groner. Yes. Mayor Bielostowski.
Yes. Thank you. So the agenda is approved. And we'll move to public comment. Hi, Kathy. Welcome back. Just to state your name and city residence, you have up to 3 minutes.
Kathy Halicki, Westland. Upon reflection, I would like to apologize for my behavior at the last city council meeting. I put some comments towards you, which I realize now you knew nothing about. So that wasn't fair. And also my attitude was rather rude. And so I'd like to apologize to all of you in person, in public, and tell you I'll do better. Thank you.
Hey, so thank you for coming back and we appreciate
you.
that.
And thank you for the service to the
Yes.
neighborhood and the community.
How long have you been a neighborhood president? It's been a few years now, right?
I think when I looked it up, I'm on year 9.
Wow. Very good. Well, we really appreciate your service.
Elections in September, so maybe we can pass the torch. We'll see.
Okay. Thank you. I look forward to continuing to work with you and appreciate you coming back. Next comment?
That's it until under item 4. There's another.
Okay.
comment.
We'll take the next public comment in just a few minutes. The first item of business under mayor and council reports is to appoint a community advisory group member. And I place before the council appointing Mikhail Rosenberg to the Transportation Advisory Board.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the mayor's appointment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the appointment of Mikhail Rosenberg to the Transportation Advisory Board. Any discussion? Seeing none, we can call the roll then.
Councillor Brike,
Yes.
Council President Baumgartner,
Yes.
Councillor Leo. I'm sorry, Councillor Groner. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Councillor Bonnington,
Yes.
Mayor Bielostowski.
Yes, thank you. And so the motion passes. Congratulations and thank you to Mikhail for applying to be on the TAB. Seen some of his commentary on the online and glad he's getting engaged with the city. And the next item is the reports from community advisory groups or city business in general. I can just start. Let's see. Well, I'm going to gather my thoughts for a minute. I'm going to go to Council President, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I can report that Councillor Brike and I attended the C4 retreat. That is the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, made up of elected officials and city staff and managers from around the county. That was an overnight at Welch's, and it was quite a productive 24 hours and loaded with good discussions, mainly focusing on the topics of affordable housing and housing availability and transit, and how we can increase both in our communities. I also attended just on this past Friday, the Clackamas County Agribusiness Tour, which was extremely fascinating. And it was an afternoon tour starting at the Wooden Shoe Bulb Company and Farm outside of Woodburn. And we got to tour a dairy that started as a farm stand, is now a small herd dairy that specializes in cheese. And they actually make alcohol. They make vodka out of whey, which is very interesting, called Cowcohol. So I had never seen that. And so that was really fascinating, listening to the challenges of modern day farmers. We also got to tour an extremely large scale flower farmer just outside of Canby. And that was also fascinating. They have 60 acres of indoor greenhouses. So that was pretty much as far as touring. I do have a topic of interest to the city and the region that we can discuss if we want, because news is evolving regarding the Willamette Falls Trust and the request from the trust to the state and the initial passage of that request for $45 million. It has now passed to the desk of the governor and is on a line item veto list. So the possibility exists that the funding may not come through in the end. The deadline is the end of the week for that. And the mayor and I have been in discussions with various leaders, regionally, tribal, state level. And I spoke with someone from the governor's office today. And so that is an ongoing situation. If anybody has any questions about, I'm happy to help illuminate. And we can discuss that as we process on. Thank you.
So those were similar remarks to what I had to say about we've engaged with the governor's office, we've engaged with the trust, and I was asked to sign an op-ed recently in support of the funding, and it doesn't purport to be on behalf of the city. So there was a question of whether the council needs to sign off or vote to approve the op-ed, but it's mainly from myself and doesn't say anything on behalf of the city. It was just as mayor. So just flagging that for everybody. And it's just talking about the importance of the funding to the Falls area. Any questions? Go ahead, Councilor Groner.
Yeah, I'm curious if there's any information on the governor's motive. Is it for saving money or because there has been controversy over who runs those, the falls and the lots?
I will allow Council President to answer that question as much as she wants to now, and obviously there can be more discussion as well.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Groner. That's a good question. It's actually under review is the reason for given for the presence on the line item veto list. It's basically kind of a placeholder of we want to look further and deeper into this. There's a lot of detail, and I don't know how much time we want to spend on it, but just very briefly, the source of the money for these funds is the lottery bond, and traditionally projects that are funded from the lottery bond aren't usually this type of a more concept project that isn't a shovel-ready kind of construction project or infrastructure project. So that's one element. And just not to avoid the topic, there's also potential conflict, intertribal conflicted access interests. And so that is also a matter of some delicacy that we want to be respecting all of the tribes and how they wish to be represented or how they wish their interests to be observed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we're going to continue monitoring that, and I'm sure there'll be more news. I think the deadline for a decision by the governor, I've been told, was Friday. So Councilor Baumgartner.
Just one last point, just following what you had said so that the rest of council in this setting has news of it, I could also be called by, for instance, the media and would be making a statement as a member of the Willamette Falls Trust, not necessarily reflecting the thoughts of council, and I will make that clear in my statement. But if anybody has any questions or concerns, they can talk to me now or offline is fine.
Counselor Groner.
Yeah, I mean, conceivably, if there was some sort of consensus on the council, we could pass some sort of resolution or write a council letter to the governor. If we have some sort of consensus on the council.
We could do that.
I sent a letter to the governor last week for myself on the topic of continuing the funding that was allocated, and I can send that to everybody. I was out of town, so I didn't distribute it to the city council, but I sent one for myself. I'll send that to the city council for thoughts. And-
Mayor,
Yes,
we could also share the op-ed, and if people wanted to sign on to it, that would be
Yes.
another way. If council wishes to be in support publicly of this public access
Good,
project,
should.
then that would be another way.
Okay. Thank you. Counselor Bragg, please.
So if we had consensus this evening, then the op-ed could be mayor on behalf of the council?
We could do that. That would require taking a look at the op-ed, I suppose, and would we do that during the meeting or would we do that? Let me think about the process for that for a minute. Any thoughts from you, John? Or Kaylee?
It really just comes down to the council rule that talks about an individual councilor's representation to the media. And so if there is a consensus on an issue, like in support of an issue by a majority of the councilors, an individual counselor is permitted to say it is the council's position. And so if 3 of you feel strongly in support of advocating that the 45 million not be vetoed and continue forward with this project, I don't think you necessarily have to be reviewing the op-ed. It's more of just, this is our stance, we're in support of it. So it doesn't need to necessarily be a detailed discussion. It's more of just taking the pulse on where everyone stands. So, no counselors caught off guard that, it was represented that they were in support of something that they're not. So.
Thank you for summing that up very poignantly. Any thoughts on the issue of the 45 million in funding? Okay. Councilor Bragg, then we'll go to Councilor Bonington. Oh, they want to switch the order, please. Councilor Bonington.
I think I know both of your positions on that matter well enough to trust that anything you'd say would represent at least what I would want to say. So I have absolutely no problem authorizing you guys to speak on behalf of me regarding that. So.
Thank you for those comments. Councilor Groner, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I get a feeling we do have consensus. I just wanted to, is it a little more formal than that?
I
Have to
appreciate
be.
that. Appreciate that. And Councilor Bragg, any thoughts?
No, just what I said, I'm in agreement. I think we have consensus on this issue. And I think it would certainly provide great benefits to the city as this rolls forward, and would love to see this happen.
That's great. Kaylee flagged the rule for me, and I'm relieved because in the letter that I sent to the governor last week, I did say on behalf of the city of West Linn. So I'm glad that the council is behind me. We're good on the rules, and I appreciate that. And so we can also I can circulate this op-ed, or we could even direct our staff to draft up a quick op-ed of our own. I don't, if depending on what we want, but it sounds to me like there's a consensus to take that sort of policy position, and I can connect with our staff about the best approach to convey that to the governor officially. So does that sound good to everybody? Thank you for that. Good issue and of great importance to West Linn, frankly, and our region. And I appreciate your thoughts, Council President, as well about the tribal issues that are kind of a big part of the discussion. So anybody else have a report from the community advisory groups? Councilor Bragg, thank you as well for attending the C4 retreat.
Yes, the retreat was great. I really, really enjoyed it. Also, I attended the planning commission meeting where we got an update on the waterfront vision process. So that was a good meeting as well.
Thank you for that. Counselor Groner?
Yes, a couple of weeks ago, the bike kiosk was set up on Main Street and quite a crowd. A lot of people enjoyed it. It's really interesting sculpture. It sort of takes a while to take it in, all the aspects. It's semi-abstract, but there are some realistic aspects. We also had a bike tour procession. I'm not sure what the formal name was. Ride.
I heard it was a
bike ride.
parade.
All right. And I got to ride it, well, at least sit in the new street sweeper that the city bought.
Thank you for that report. I attended that session as well down in Willamette. That was awesome. And we got some art. Here's to more public art coming in, maybe even a mural someday around town. Counselor Bonington, please.
All right, I have a couple of things. Let's see, starting with. Right, so the Sunset Neighborhood Association meeting was back on July 22nd. And just a reminder that the Sunset Neighborhood Association picnic is going to be on August 17th from 3 to 5 p.m. And it's looking to be a very big event. And moving forward to Thursday, the 24th, was the Neighborhood Association President's Quarterly Meeting. That may become bi-monthly. Not really sure what the consensus is going to be. It's been discussed a few times, but we did have presentations from Public Works and Parks and from Chris Myers about Vision 43, and those were really fantastic. Glad they were showing up for those. Let's see, also on Saturday, July 26th was History is Child's Play at the Westland Library, put on by the Historical Society, and that was really fun to be a part of. Had probably about a dozen young kids or so who came in and learned about the history of this area and how long it's been occupied by humans. And then finally, we had Rebecca Hollenbeck, Director of Historic Willamette, who was going to come and update us on some of the things that she's been working on, but she wasn't able to make it. So I just wanted to make sure that I expressed appreciation for the parade that group put on. We accidentally didn't mention that last time, so thank you to Historic Willamette for that. And then, yeah, that's it.
I just saw some remarks from Rebecca come in. She was planning to be here, the director of Main Street, but she couldn't, but she sent in some updates, and I think maybe she'll start coming regularly and giving some updates to the council. That'll be great. So we will review that update. Anything else to report from the city council? Councilor Bright, please.
Well, since we've heard about the Sunset picnic, the Robinwood Neighborhood Association has their picnic scheduled for August 23rd from 12 to 4.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Try to get all those on everybody's calendar just in case city council wants to attend. Let's see. Anything else on community advisory groups or city business? We covered a lot of ground tonight on that topic, and thank you for Council President for the updates from your service on the trust. We can now move into the city manager evaluation process. And there's been a memorandum distributed today. It was written in the past, but since it was written on July 11th, but since we didn't have another meeting, we put it on the agenda today to discuss the performance evaluation process for our city manager. And we can just, we'll get a consensus on the timeline that was presented. I'll just go over it during the public meeting. I'll read through the timeline. We'd publicize an opportunity for public comment on the evaluation on August 5th, and then that would go through the 31st. So folks would have 3 weeks, a little over 3 weeks to get their comments in. And then there'd be compilation sent to the council on September 2nd, self-evaluation on September 12th, and then counselors would send their individual evaluation September 26th, and then in October, we would conclude the process with an executive session and public meeting. So that was the process. Any comments or thoughts? Is this where we have a public comment as well? Okay, we'll get through the council discussion and we'll take the public comment. Yeah, sure, you can bring up Councilor Bonington sent a couple of thoughts in on.
Yeah, so I just had a slight change that I thought might be valuable to us after having gone through last year's process. I felt like we were really constructive, but we got into a number of things that were more inherent to the city as an organization, if anyone remembers that discussion. And as a result, I thought it might just be helpful if we had a separate evaluation of just the state of the city that each of us could evaluate to include. So we're not, I guess, holding the city manager accountable for things that are completely out of his control. And especially now that we have a second employee under council, we want to make sure we're probably separating things, if that makes sense.
So maybe an extra comment box on the
Yeah.
city council evaluation about thoughts on the city organization.
Right,
If there are
exactly.
Any other issues?
Yeah, and then I thought it might be really instructive to us if we gave the city manager an opportunity to give us feedback about anything we could do to better set him up for success before providing our comments on him.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for raising that. Any other thoughts on the process? Is everybody comfortable with that, the timeline? Okay. Okay, well, we can now do the public comment.
Tom Meyer?
Welcome, Mr. Meyer. Just state your name and city residence. Make sure the mic's on. You have up to 3 minutes.
I am Tom Meyer, and I am the president of the Westland Pickleball Club and the vice president of the newly resurrected Parker Crest Neighborhood Association. With liberty and justice for all. That's what we're about here. That's what this city is about. And I don't feel that I have been treated accordingly with Mr. Williams. I'll give you several instances. I realize it's premature, but it'll give the public the opportunity to weigh in on their experiences in dealing with Mr. Williams. I first met Mr. Williams when he was the interim city manager. And was assigned the project management of the covered pickleball structure at Tanner Creek Park. It's known as BD or DB 1809. So Gabrielatus left, and I worked with Mr. Williams on the project until cancer, which I contracted in volunteer activities with the city at Tanner Creek Park. Cancer forced me to allow Mr. Williams to manage the project alone. He dropped the ball, and the project is still awaiting completion. Project management is not his forte. Communication is supposedly Mr. Williams' main priority. This was not demonstrated in my dealings with him, and the pickleball community feels likewise. In removing 2 of the courts from Tanner Creek Park, no data analysis was done in the way of decibel readings, no inclusive attempt to work with me as president of the Westland Pickleball Club, was attempted to seek a compromise. I have a petition in the social media to actually remove Mr. Williams. And I was gathering petitions at one point in time. And I ran into Mark, who's a lawyer, who submitted the petition to vacate the two. And he said, buddy, you're barking up the wrong tree. But at any rate,
Mr. Meyer, you're, just letting you know, your time's running down there. Could you wrap up, please?
oh, that's it.
3 minute. You can only give 3 minutes for public comment per person.
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to come back. Can I finish it? I have about a page.
We got a huge agenda tonight to get through,
Okay.
so
I'll just come back.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And you're also welcome as we laid out the process tomorrow, the public comment forum for the city manager's evaluation will begin, and you're welcome to submit a comment that way as well.
Well, I've given you plenty to read. I've researched and done a lot of detailed work to compare the covered pickleball structure with the now recreation center project, which is 65 million.
And you're also welcome to submit your comments too. That you said you had another page, so you're welcome to submit them also.
They've already been covered in previous submissions. I appreciate it. Thanks for your time and your public service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments on that?
That's all.
And I guess we already kind of did a consensus on the process for the city manager evaluation, but we will open up the comment period. Let's see, that's tomorrow. And we'll publicize that opportunity. So thank you. And with that, we can move on the agenda to the urban renewal presentation, unless anybody had any other mayor and council reports. Okay. And I'll welcome up Elaine Howard and Lauren Breithaupt and turn it over to the city manager to introduce the topic, and I can provide any other remarks.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for approving the process. The process that you've approved for my review includes not just public comment, but also comment from any member of our staff, which is anonymous comment on the staff sides for obvious reasons. And so I look forward to the conversation with the community and with our staff and with all of you in September and October. The urban renewal presentation scheduled tonight came from a conversation with the mayor and council, acting as your role also as agency members for the relatively new Westland Redevelopment Agency. In the budget process, you approved the first 2-year budget for the agency and realized you wanted to have a discussion now that the agency was up and running about what you might do from here. And so Lauren and Elaine Howard have prepared a conversation for you. Elaine has, as you know, worked for us for some time and is the state's preeminent expert on urban renewal tax increment financing. You couldn't have a better person in the room if you want to think about what urban renewal agencies do and how they do it and what the results are. So we discussed earlier, this is sort of an introduction session, and I think it can be somewhat of a conversation. My guess is I have just said everything that Lauren was thinking of saying, so that happens sometimes. But Lauren, I'll turn it over to you and Elaine for the conversation. Thank you both for being here.
Great, thank you, John. And as John mentioned, this is more of just a 101 of urban renewal and also discussing kind of our timeline. That's what we've asked Elaine to put together of what she would recommend in terms of when we'll be issuing debt and when our financing will be coming in and how much property taxes we expect to have and what projects we expect to do. So I will just turn it over to Elaine. She has a fantastic presentation for us and I will give it over to her. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you and good evening. And I've met most of you, so it's nice to see you all again. I'm happy to be here to help you think about next steps for your tax increment area. What we will go through is what is tax increment financing / urban renewal, and then we put those together because Some agencies are calling themselves tax increment agencies, and urban renewal is the historic name. And so I just want to make sure everybody understands they refer to one and the same. They aren't two different kinds of authority or two different kinds of legislation. A crash course, Urban Renewal 101, some information about your riverfront tax increment area, the projects in your plan, finances. There was a specific question about acquisition and how to best use it, and then questions and discussion. So what is tax increment financing? Tax increment financing started in Oregon in 1957. It was originally authorized for housing authorities. So the Portland Housing Authority and the Salem Housing Authority had the first authority to do tax increment financing. It has morphed into city councils. There are a couple that are done through counties, but mostly through city councils creating an urban renewal agency and it running through a city instead of, there are none run through housing authorities now. It's unique in that it is a financing tool. So a lot of times cities adopt plans or reports, and those plans never have money attached to them. So you can have a great riverfront plan, vision plan, or a downtown plan, but you don't always have the funding associated with that plan. Tax increment plans have funding associated with them. They are historically used to address blighting conditions, to be able to establish a tax increment area in Oregon. You have to state that blight exists within that area. They function on increases in property tax revenues within an urban renewal area. They're used all over Oregon, and you can see on this map after the, as we'll come to the map later. Let's go back. I hope we have a map in here, but if we don't, we can come back to that and I can tell you where they're used in your community or surrounding area. The first of all basic is that tax increment is not a new tax. There's something on your property tax bill that says urban renewal, but it is not a new tax that goes on property tax bills. Got it. Sorry, I have allergies today and I did not realize that we decided on sitting in my throat right now. In November, when we all pay our property taxes, our property tax revenue goes to the assessor's office. County treasurer distributes those funds to all of the regular taxing jurisdictions, city, county, other taxing districts. There are only two reasons in Oregon that our property taxes increase. It's because of the allowed 3% increase of assessed value every year. And typically, unless we're in a deep recession, the assessor will increase our assessed value by 3% every year. A lot of times when I give this presentation, people will say, well, mine went up a lot more than 3%. And I say, are you looking at your real market value or your assessed value? Because real market values will go up depending on what the market is. And sometimes that's 9% or 10%. You're not taxed on your real market values, you're taxed on your assessed values, and those are limited to that 3% increase. Property taxes assessed value may also increase if you do substantial improvements to your property. And if you have a vacant property and you build something new on it. So if you have vacant land, you build a new structure, the assessor will come in and provide an assessment of that property. When you form an urban renewal area within your city, that's depicted by the blue in that graphic, the property tax revenue stream is a little different. When those increases, the 30% appreciation or the substantial improvements end up Does anybody have a throat lozenge? Thank you. Thank you.
We can take a quick break if you need to. We just appreciate you sharing your expertise with us. No.
The increase in assessed value within that urban renewal area goes to the urban renewal agency instead of to all those regular taxing jurisdictions. That is just for the property within the urban renewal area. It's not for all properties within the city. And a lot of people get confused because they think, well, urban renewal is affecting all this money that's going to our taxing districts. No, it's just impacting the assessed value increases within that specific urban renewal area. This graphic does a nice job of showing why urban renewal is effective and showing that increase in property tax revenue over time in a little different method. So the light blue along the bottom is the assessed value of an urban renewal area at the time that it's formed. The taxes off of that assessed value at the time it's formed continue going to all of the different taxing districts. The hatch mark brown shows that 3% increase that happens typically on all of our property tax bills. That is the revenue that is foregone by the taxing districts due to your urban renewal area. The area without the hash mark in the brown is that expected increased assessed value within that area due to the projects and programs that you're able to undertake within the area that will cause that assessed value to grow at a higher rate than it would grow if we didn't have an urban renewal plan of tax increment financing within that area. So you can see that the trajectory of the assessed value within the area goes up much higher than that 3% typically in any successful urban renewal area. At the time that an urban renewal area ends, all of that additional revenue goes to all the different taxing districts. So in the light blue hatch, you can see that the taxing districts will enjoy a substantial amount of increase of taxes. Yes, they do forego those taxes over time during the time that you have an urban renewal area. And in many urban renewal areas, that increase would not happen but for your tax increment / urban renewal area. Because if you are not able to put in the infrastructure to allow property to develop, you aren't going to see increases above that 3%. This is your West Linn Willamette Riverfront tax increment finance area. And you can see that it is concentrated in right along the riverfront, goes down into historic West Linn and then jumps over 205 to the district just above or just to the east of 205. The maximum indebtedness of your area is 76,100,000. That's that second row on this chart. Maximum indebtedness in any urban renewal area is the total amount that you must spend on projects, programs, and administration of that urban renewal area over the lifetime of the urban renewal area. Maximum indebtedness is required by the statute that governs urban renewal. So at the time you establish an urban renewal plan, you also have to establish a maximum indebtedness for that plan. We work with the city and we had at that time a task force that worked on this advisory committee to develop projections for development over time that gave us the inputs to project what that maximum indebtedness would be. And that is how we came up with that $76,100,000. The top row on this chart says total net TIF, and it exceeds that $76 million. And that is because it includes projected interest payments on bond debt or any loans. In Oregon, in the maximum indebtedness, the interest paid on debt is not defined as part of that maximum indebtedness. It's outside of the maximum indebtedness. But you still have to collect that from the assessor's office and from the taxing districts because you have to pay that interest on the debt. But that does not eat into your capacity for doing projects or the amount of money that you can spend on projects out of that $76 million. When we prepared the plan in 2023, and I worked with Tiberius Solutions, they did all of the financial projections. We looked at what that capacity was in 2023 dollars, the year that we actually did the plan, and that was $41,700,000. The reason that's lower is the maximum indebtedness assumes inflation over time. You bring that, you discount that inflation back out of it, and you're looking at your projects in today's costs when you put them in an urban renewal plan. And so you need to look at what your capacity is also in today's costs. When we did projections for years 1 through 5, we put a 0 here because at that time we were talking about just banking your money the first 5 years to be able to place a bond after those 5 years to proceed with the Willamette Falls Drive project. That was the most important project that City Council wanted done initially. And so when we did the finance plan, we didn't allocate spending any money in the years 1 through 5, just banking that money.
Is that the realignment of Willamette Falls Drive? Or is it that project? Okay. Thank you for that.
So in years 6 through 10, you would have about $6.2 million of authority to spend on projects and programs and administration. 11 through 15, 9.5, 16 through 20, 8.4, 21 through 25, 6.1, and then 26 through 30, 11.5. The assessor's estimated increment for this fiscal year that just ended was $136,740. The actual increment that you received was $129,000. That's typically because of underpayments by people who aren't paying or who are delinquent in their payments. And then what happens is next year, you'll get a portion of that back. And so it will, when the assessor gives it to you, they'll label that prior year's taxes. And so that little under $7,000 worth of money will come to you over time, depending on when those tax receipts actually get paid. You have a duration provision in your plan. It is not required by statute. However, when we worked on this plan, TVFNR, Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, was a member of the advisory committee. They asked for a duration provision to be put into the plan. The provision says that the agency intends to collect tax increment only for 30 years of collections, and that it shall not initiate projects unless it is able to pay for those projects with proceeds of indebtedness issued and paid for before that 30-year duration. So in 25 years, you will start looking at that 30-year duration and saying, how do we best allocate our resources if it looks like we're actually not going to meet that maximum indebtedness in that 30-year time frame, and what do we do? And I've had other plans that have timeframes in them, and I've had them meet or terminate earlier than those timeframes. I've also had them where we have to come back and say, we've only used half of our maximum indebtedness, and then either renegotiate that time frame or close the plan if you cannot renegotiate the time frame. Just for your information, TVFNR, at the time that we did this plan, we were also doing 3 plans in Tualatin, a plan in Newburgh, updating some work in Lake Oswego, and TVFNR was being hit by all of those. And they did ask for duration provisions in all of those plans. So what may you do in an urban renewal area? You have a specific plan that has specific projects outlined. Those are what we thought in 2023, given your staff input and input from the advisory committee, that you would want to undertake. Those plans may be changed. The projects in the plan may be changed. They can be changed through a minor amendment to your plan. So it's easy. A minor amendment is just done through the adoption of a resolution by your agency. You can change the priority of those projects in your plan. That's typically done through the budget process, where you're looking at what amount of money might come in and how you might spend that money. And we all know that over 30 years, our priorities have changed. The amount of money we might get from other sources has some input on how you decide to spend money. So your decision-making may change over that time frame. All of that can be done by a minor amendment to your plan. The types of things that you may do are outlined in the statute under ORS 457.170 and 180. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I don't see parks on that list, or is that a,
Neighborhood development programs typically includes parks.
thank you.
Yeah. And remember, this list was put in the statute in 1957. So the things that we have actually implemented out from what's in this list have changed over time. But the list in the statute hasn't changed. Neighborhood development programs used to be cities, and I don't know whether did you operate one neighborhood development program in Canby? No, they're probably a little older than John is. Unfortunately, I know of people who've operated them. But that was where you actually got federal money that came in, and you would pair your federal money with your urban renewal money and get to do those parks and those kinds of things that improved your neighborhood and community. And so that verbiage doesn't mean anything to you anymore. In 1957, it meant those projects that you do to improve community.
Thank you.
So work of a housing authority, again, it started out as doing housing work. We have found in the last 5 years that housing has become one of our top issues. And so a lot of the work that we're doing now is bringing us back to that work of a housing authority, trying to figure out how to provide workforce housing, how to increase housing, how to implement housing strategic plans that you are doing. Rehabilitation and conservation, so that is buying buildings, improving buildings, buying property, improving property acquisition, and we'll come back to acquisition because that was one of your specific questions. Demolition, street and utility improvements, repair and rehabilitation of buildings. Relocation, and that was specifically, unfortunately, that was put into plans when things like Albina happened in Northeast Portland, where a whole neighborhood was displaced and relocated. But even now, if you buy property or do property with TIF funds or renewable funds, you have to consider relocation of anybody who's in that property. Disposition, neighborhood development programs, and making of grants and loans. When we did your plan, there was an overall project investment philosophy, and that was to complete initial projects that will stimulate private development and then add in parks, trails, and other amenity projects. These were, at that time, the projects that were identified. And again, that doesn't mean you have to do them in this priority, but that was in 2023 what your priority was. So it started out with Willamette Falls Drive improvements from one section to another, and then the second section, Candler Street realignment, 8th Avenue connection, 8th Avenue improvements, riverfront trail amenities. It was thought at that time that those transportation improvements, which had within them utilities, would in fact be those projects that will help spur development.
Are those costs in 2023 dollars or are they adjusted for inflation?
No, they're in 2023 dollars. These items were also in the priority one, so historic city hall parking, historic city hall public plaza, facade improvement program, and street beautification program. Priority 2 was a turn signal on Willamette Falls Drive and 12th Street, historic Willamette parking and 10th Street, Blankenship Road. Priority 3, Willamette River Fishing Dock and Ladder, and Riverfront Park. And you notice the price tag on the Riverfront Park is a big project. So these were the allocations from your 2023 report. We don't typically update those allocations annually. As you start spending money, when you allocate money to a project, you have to go back and look at those allocations, because if that allocation to a project is higher than what we allocated here, you know that you have to take money away from another project. All projects, within an urban renewal plan do not have to be done. You have the authority to do any project within an urban renewal plan. Many, many times those projects change in dollar amounts change. We did figure in inflation factors. So on this, it shows that, for example, on 8th Avenue, the 2023 cost was $400,000. The year of expenditure projected cost was $680,000. So that you can see on the bottom, those two numbers equal that first chart that I showed you that showed the maximum indebtedness number and then the amount of money that you have in 2023 dollars to spend on projects. In just recently, you have worked with Tiberius Solutions to update your financial projections for the area. I wasn't part of that project. I did get a copy of that spreadsheet from Lauren, and it indicated that you have the potential to issue bonds in fiscal year in 2031, and you could at that point issue about $4.5 million worth of bonds. And then in the subsequent years, as are shown here. So looking at the Willamette Falls Drive projects, we know that they are much more expensive than what these amounts are. So looking for other sources of funds to help you implement those projects is going to be key. Or you're going to be doing those projects in either a later time frame or in smaller segments.
Can I ask you a question about this? So when you look at these numbers, they add up to about 18 million, 19 million, just doing the math on the fly. But then when you look at the maximum indebtedness, that's much more. So how do you unlock those additional funds, or is that?
Comes in, and Lauren has a spreadsheet from Tiberius that shows that other money coming in. And that money is spent on an annual basis. So you have, this is when you can access larger amounts of funds to add to that money that you get on an annual basis. So the rest of that maximum indebtedness comes in and your debt is incurred on an annual basis to be able to spend those funds.
So this is kind of our looking out the bucket for the major projects then to actually like take out some debt, do a project. Okay. That's interesting. That's very good to know. I think it's very helpful presentation so far. Thank you.
So how to amend your plan? We talked about the minor amendments. You may also add acreage property under 1% of your original acreage as a minor amendment. Anytime you go over 1% of your acreage, it becomes a substantial amendment. And a substantial amendment is the same process as the adoption of an original urban renewal plan. So it's both costly and takes about 6 months. So we talked about that when we settled on the boundary in 2023, that you really want to settle on the boundary that you want. and not have to come in and make amendments to the boundary because it's both costly and time consuming for you and for your staff. So acquisition, the question was, when should we use acquisition and how do we use it to implement our projects? So why do we use acquisition? Acquisition is in every urban renewal plan, tax increment plan that I write. It is statutory authorized, as we looked at the 457.170. And acquisition is used for any of your utility projects if you need right of way. Or if you need to do any of the, so like street right of way or sewer or stormwater. That is a right of the city to do acquisition. That's a right of the city and the urban renewal agency to use eminent domain to do that, just for those rights of ways for utilities. If you are wanting to acquire property for potential redevelopment, you may not use eminent domain in Oregon. You have to buy from a willing seller. And you then may buy from a willing seller, decide to hold that property or and until the time is right to redevelop the property. So that has been used. This is in downtown Lake Oswego. That has been used in downtown Lake Oswego, the old Weiser's property. This is the development that went on that property. The city negotiated for years on the Weiser's block, finally was able to purchase that, and this new development went in. They have also bought property at what's called the North Anchor Project, and they are just sitting on that property now as they're negotiating for a developer to be able to develop that property. Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to buy big pieces of property? Sometimes you need to assemble lots to be able to do a big enough project that you want to do. So if you're wanting to do a large housing development, you can't do that on small parcels. You need to put together larger pieces of property. Sometimes you know a property is going to come for sale and you don't want the type of use you think is going, so maybe it's storage units are going to go on it. And you don't want storage units at that particular spot. And you have money and the ability to purchase that property. You might purchase that property and hold it until the time is right to do the type of development that you want to happen on that specific property. This is a piece of property that the Florence Urban Renewal Agency purchased and has been working with a hotel developer that's right across from the Florence Convention Center. So perfect position for a hotel to go in. And this is from last month's Planning Commission packet that was finally approved. And this will finally begin construction, I believe, this summer. But happened because of an acquisition project. This project, the Tiger Redevelopment Agency bought this property and put in this mixed use development that put in, I think, over 200 new housing units in downtown Tiger. This property was a historic property in Coos Bay. It was dilapidated, the windows were broken out. No developer wanted to touch it. The Coos Bay urban renewal area bought the property, did all of the exterior renovation, and then sold the property to a developer to get a use cabin. So in this particular case, the city felt like the building was important enough that they wanted to make sure to keep the building as an historic structure, did that money, did that investment, knowing they were not going to get that investment back, but that it was good for the community to keep the historic building clean. This is the Astoria Liberty Theater. It was purchased by a nonprofit using partially, a lot of different funds came together, but some funding came from the Urban Renewal Agency to be able to redo it. And I don't know if any of you have gone to a performance there. But if you haven't, it is beautiful inside and well worth going to. And they really program it well throughout the entire year. So put it on your bucket list. This is the abandoned Face Rock Creamery. The Urban Renewal Agency, it was owned by the Tilton Creamery. They decided they were not going to use the property. The Urban Renewal Agency purchased the property. They worked with Face Rock Creamery to develop the property. The restrooms were developed with Urban Renewal Agency money, and the sidewalks and the parking. And then the developer came in and did the development, and since this photo has done a huge renovation addition to it because it has been very successful. And here are parks, your question. So Lake Oswego has spent a lot of tax increment money on parks to create the Millennium Plaza, was all done with parks. This is there on the Bayfront, Wilsonville, their main park across from the library was done with tax increment funds. And those two lovely children are my grandchildren. And we still go often to that particular splash pad. So where do you go from here? You're just starting to get tax increment funds. How do you want to spend them? Do you want to spend them the way that they are outlined in the plan, or do you not? I have just finished in the last couple of years, 5-year action plans with those different localities. I don't think you're ready yet to do a 5-year action plan. I think in maybe 2 years, when you start getting more money in. I think at this point, and unless you want to start doing some facade grants in historic Willamette, if you want to work with businesses, you have enough money to do those little projects. You don't really have enough money to do any big project yet. And until you do, things change very quickly. You could do a 5-year action plan now. And then in 2 years, when you actually have enough money, you'd say, yeah, that's not really how we want to spend that money now. So I would suggest unless there's something one of you is burning to do and saying, we really need to allocate some of our precious money towards this project, I would suggest that you do like what we started talking about in the beginning, which is bank your money for a bit until you have enough money to actually go in and do a substantial project to help create development within the area. 5-year action plans to me are great because they project what amount of money you actually have in 5-year time frame to spend. And so you're just looking at that time frame and saying, okay, that's much easier to look at how to allocate our money over 5 years. And that works really, really well with urban renewal agencies. And again, I would say, I'm not sure you're quite ready to do that yet, but of course, you may think you are, I don't know. And then questions from you on anything or anything I have?
Thank you for all that wonderful information and helping inform us on this tool that we have. That's good, very good to revisit it because I hadn't taken a look at the project list in a while in any event, and learned a lot from you, and happy to, people are processing it, but happy to open the floor up for any questions or comments, or we can always schedule a follow-up meeting on the topic. Council President and I have had conversations in the past about like, oh, maybe we could get a convention center or just, something like that. Or sometimes you're driving around, you see a property for sale in the district and you go, because we've seen Lake Oswego, how they did land acquisition, how do you, could we even acquire that? And so it sounds like what you're saying is, wait a little bit to pursue land acquisitions until the future.
Strategic acquisition is really important because as we all know, the price of land goes up and up. And if you know what you want there, then it's worth considering. In downtown Lake Oswego, they knew what they wanted on those properties. They, like your vision plan that you're working on, you know what you want to happen. If you know what you want to happen and property becomes available, I say buy that property and do something. Don't let it I had a city I was working with, and there was a property downtown that became available. They had enough money to buy that property. They decided not to. And it's, a prime location in an historic downtown, and it became a Goodwill store, which isn't really what they want in their downtown. And so sometimes you do have to jump at those acquisition opportunities when maybe you weren't ready to do that, but you see something and you hear what might happen if you don't jump, and you think, you know what, it's time to intervene.
And this process is so new to us as a city council. We've only had a couple urban renewal agency meetings. Like if there ever was a situation where that happened in the next several years, is it an easy process, or how do you determine whether you can even afford something like that and then go through you have to amend your plan basically?
Anytime a property owner hears that the city wants to buy the property, the price will go up. So you never do a direct negotiation. You do a blind negotiation. So you have somebody negotiating for you. If you acquire property in an urban renewal, you have to list it in your plan, but you don't have to list it in your plan until you have a signed agreement to purchase.
Interesting.
So you can negotiate on a piece of property, you can agree to purchase a piece of property. And sometimes with the city council, they may say, you know, I don't want to do a blind negotiation. I want everybody to feel good about what we're doing. And you can do that, but your costs.
Sometimes costs go up. Thank you for that. Councilor Bright, please.
So if the city owned a piece of property or acquired a piece of property within the urban renewal district, could we put parameters on the use of that property?
Within whatever the zoning is, absolutely. If you looked into Lake Oswego, they had very strict design and development guidelines about what they wanted to happen in properties. And that, as long as you have a developer willing to do that, that works great, because you get really wonderful development that makes your community become what you want it to be.
Obviously, we can have continued discussions with Elaine. She's our consultant, so a counselor could call her if they had any questions, or we can schedule follow-up meetings on this topic in the future. Any other burning questions on the topic of urban renewal? I hope everybody learned a little bit or felt it was good to revisit this, especially after the budget conversations. And I guess the only other thing on we've talked a little bit about in the council goals, the Highway 43 urban renewal district feasibility study, to take a look at the finances of that. And I just wanted to ask what the status of that is. And I know we've got a particular person starting tomorrow who may have something to do with that.
Well, funny you should say that. I was going to talk about that just a little bit under city manager report, but yes, we've had some preliminary conversations with consultants about possibly doing that work. And we've had some conversations about what the right timing for that would be relative to the milestones we reached in the Vision 43 project. And I think that would be one that we would turn over to our new community development director starting tomorrow. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I think it's an exciting opportunity. The only other thing I would add to Elaine's presentation is we talked a lot about the tax increment finances being part of the puzzle, not necessarily the whole puzzle on some of the projects that we do. I think we all knew as we entered into this program that it wasn't going to have scale and scope and resources that some tax increment districts that we look at around the state, including some of our local cities. This is a smaller district with probably more targeted projects that would happen inside it. And we'll have to be strategic about how we use these funds, possibly in combination with other things like grants or other pieces of our revenue. If it's going to be a road project, we're going to need to be working with our SDC fund and our street maintenance fund and all those pieces that would come together, because it's just not going to have the amount of resource to do. You know, we're not going to be able to rebuild Willamette Falls Drive from downtown to Highway 43, including the roundabout, anytime soon. as you can see from the revenue estimates that Elaine showed you tonight. Property acquisition is a different thing. The scale is probably a lot smaller and very possible. So if there do become some target sites, picking up on your question, Mayor, we have the resources here in the room and elsewhere to do the financial analysis, to do the real estate analysis, and be able to meet council goals on that, or agency goals, as it may be. So we're happy to have those conversations over time. And you can see the level of resource that we have here.
I appreciate those comments. And as you mentioned before in a private conversation, there are some trade-offs as well. If you use money to purchase a property or something like that, then you're foregoing potential money you could use somewhere else, especially at the early stages, but could be worth it sometimes depending. And we saw those beautiful examples from around the state. So I just wanted to get a little more information on land acquisition because I thought it was a key possibility. Anything else on this topic? We can close out and maybe schedule a future agency meeting to talk about the project list just to dissect it. Because when I reviewed it again, it's like, oh, wow, I forgot that was the top priority project from 3 years ago.
I think that would be a really good conversation to have in the agency context with a few key staff there and look at those projects. Start thinking of a plan, even if we're not developing a formal plan in a binder. Yeah.
Council President, please close this.
Oh, I just thank you so much. And I just wanted to thank both of you and Elaine especially for all of this exciting information and kind of to revisit it. I know we've looked at it before in previous meetings, but it is very exciting. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks.
You, sorry for the event in the midst of.
No, it's all good. Allergies can get us at any time.
I actually, embarrassingly, I think Mary has done this before for me at a different city council meeting. So I'm so glad you always carry your minutes. Thank you.
And thank you, Lauren, as well. Appreciate that. And we can move on then on the agenda. Thank you, council, for the engagement there. Onto the consent agenda. Any objection to the July 14th, 2025 meeting notes? Seeing none, you can make a motion, please, for the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the consent agenda for the August 4th, 2025 Westland City Council meeting, which includes the July 14th, 2025 meeting minutes.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and second to approve the consent agenda. Please call the roll.
Council President Baumgartner,
Yes.
Councilor Groner,
Yes.
Councilor Bonington,
Yes.
Councilor Reich,
Yes.
Mayor Bilastowski.
Yes, thank you. So, Council President mentioned that the question mark is still on the screen from the old presentation. I think we're going to go to the next presentation. I have a feeling we've got one coming up. So we'll move to the business meeting. And it's item 7A. The first is Resolution 2025-10, adopting findings to support an exemption for the invitation to bid process for 3 on-call construction contracts. I will turn that over to the city manager. You can introduce this topic.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to turn it really quickly over to Eric. And I appreciate the creativity and the thinking on this project. I think it could really help us. Eric's going to explain some of our rationale for proposing this, and we're happy to entertain any discussion. I just want to recognize that our city attorney, Kaylee Klein, put in a bunch of work on this as well. Take it away, Eric.
Mayor, city councilors, thanks for having me tonight. Eric Leyes, Public Works Director, city engineer. Little background on this. For some time, even before I was director, we had a few incidents in Public Works where I saw the need for this. Fortunately, we weren't able to give it over the hump. And as John mentioned, I really appreciate Kaylee's help with this and her team of attorneys getting us this far. So appreciate that. A little bit of a background. As I said, I have a couple examples over the years, but one in particular, just to illustrate what we would be using these on-call contractors for. Probably 5-6 years ago, we have storm drain that runs through an easement through some houses along Carriage. There's a 36-inch or 24, I can't remember, corrugated metal pipe that did run down through there, and as corrugated metal pipes do, they deteriorate over time. And there was a large sinkhole that was developing. There's a path through there. It was a hazard and so on. We weren't able to find any contractors available to come in and do that work. Our team in Public Works was able to get their heads together and come up with a game plan. It involved renting a large excavator. It was basically all hands on deck. So if any other immediate projects came up, we were going to have to drop what we were doing there and go handle those. So, you know, having the on-call contractor could come out, wouldn't utilize as many of the city resources as this particular project did. And so, and I've got more, you know, the South Fork water line that comes over from Oregon City has had numerous breaks. One was on a hillside that was probably 45 degrees. This contractor that we were able to get after a few days didn't have the equipment, that obviously specialized equipment, to get on there. So they had to hand dig 6 or 7 different joints for us to weld and restrain so the pipe would quit sliding down the hill. So again, other incidents like that, you know, we're fortunate, no water main break, and I'd say we're fortunate, but this particular time we were off peak season, so we were able to luckily get water from LO. So again, just to illustrate a couple of the ideas, examples of where we would utilize this particular types of on-call contracting. So on the in the packet, Exhibit A, you'll see the finding of facts to justify the exemption to ORS 279.335. I'm going to try to real quickly go through a couple of highlights. Once the exemption is approved, we will conduct a formal RFP process for the contractor selection. Having up to 3 contractors on call will benefit the city, will be a benefit to the city, sorry, as that not many contractors are available to respond quickly to the city's needs or expeditiously provide the needed technical expertise. Another one, establishing the availability, qualifications, and rates of these on-call contractors in advance would eliminate the need to conduct individual procurement for repair. That project that I mentioned earlier on the hillside over in Oregon City, we had to solicit bids to find a contractor. Eats up time. Had we been in peak season, that would have been trouble for us. Individual procurement for repair, maintenance, and emergency work that arises around the city and that has not been expressly budgeted for, thereby saving the city and the public valuable time and money. Specialized expertise, having an on-call contractor would allow the city to leverage their personnel, equipment, and experience from a qualification basis. Contractors are typically not available in the middle of the night during an emergency due to current workloads, et cetera. Having an emergency contractor on call would alleviate the need to find an available qualified contractor. Finally, an on-call contractor will be experienced in all types of construction and be able to respond two emergencies with the Public Works Department, including water-related environmental issues, storm drain, like I mentioned, as well as any weather-related emergencies that arise. So that's a quick summary. It's all in your packet in Exhibit A. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions, or if Kaylee wants to jump in with some additional details.
I think Eric did great. We worked with Barry Elsner to review the requirements of this exemption. And for all the reasons Eric mentioned, it seems like it's a really good value for the city, and also will expedite service needs and quickly addressing problems as they arise in emergency situations. I think the mayor, I'm sure you have it under control, but the next step would be, if you have any questions for staff, go ahead and ask them. And then if not, you can open the public hearing to see if there's any public comment.
Okay. Any questions of the Public Works Director / City Engineer? Councilor Groner, please.
Yeah, I was wondering how the number 100,000 came to be that number.
Do you recall the,
I think we discussed as a group what would be kind of a reasonable amount, because we did want to put a cap on it, so it wasn't this unlimited growing expenditure. And the way this RFP will go out is for getting more than one on-call contractor. So ideally selecting two, so you have, if one is tied up, you have an alternative. And I think staff just wanted to make sure we didn't get into a situation where they kind of had unlimited expenditures without coming to council. So it was just supposed to be prudent. It also, we talked about some of the potential things that come up and how much they generally cost. And so in the memo, we talk about how if looking at the end of the fiscal year, it seems like the $100,000 isn't enough allocated, we could come to council and ask if staff could pursue a higher amount. So it was just to keep costs contained and give you an idea of how much they're asking for.
Thank you.
Thanks. I think that's a smart idea and it makes sense. Any other comments or questions on this resolution? Then I will open a public hearing on the topic. And the public hearing is now open as required by law. Are there any comments
There are
on
not.
this? There are no
No comment.
public. Okay, the record can reflect that the hearing had no commenters, so I will then close the public hearing. And we can begin deliberation / have a motion on the resolution.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to comment first to appreciate that this is an excellent use of staff time to create an expedited process to save money and time for the city. So thank you for spending the time to do this, both of you. And I will make a motion. I move to adopt Resolution 2025-10, adopting findings to support an exemption from the formal invitation to bid process for up to 3 on-call construction contracts, declaring such exemption and authorizing flexibility in choosing appropriate formal procurement methods for such contracts.
I second.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution 2025-10, adopting findings to support an exemption from the formal invitation to bid process for up to 3 on-call construction contracts, declaring such exemption and authorizing flexibility in choosing appropriate formal procurement methods for such contracts. Any discussion other than I will echo the council president's statements about the savings to the city and how I think this is a smart idea, and glad you were in attendance at that South Fork meeting when we did that and got the idea. So, Councilor Bright.
I just want to comment that if there were a regional emergency where we needed something, having contractors on call would really benefit us, the city, to be able to have somebody in line to come do the work rather than scrambling during that emergency when everybody's trying to find contractors. So I think there's a really great benefit for this, not just for city emergencies or construction projects, but for regional emergencies. So thank you for doing this.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we can call the roll, please. Mr. Digby?
Councilor Groner,
Yes.
Counselor Bonington,
Yes.
Counselor Reich,
Yes.
Council President Baumgartner,
Yes.
Mayor Bielostad.
Yes. So the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And the resolution is adopted. So see
All
what
right.
happens with the
Yeah.
RFP.
Thank you for that.
Thanks. Well, you're going to stay up here, Mr. Leif,
Yep.
because we've got another Public Works item, the road program project contract award for 2025.
Yeah. So this is our annual paving project that we typically do each year. Various streets throughout the city. Unfortunately, we don't have the budget to do all the necessary improvements to really bring our pavement condition index up to an overall good rating, but we're picking off the worst ones and trying to keep the good streets from failing. This year, we had a series of streets that were got on the list, obviously because they're busier collector streets that have been deteriorating. And I'll go through the list in a minute, but others were really hammered on and run down from ongoing construction with development work and so on, outside of what that development was required to do. I don't want to make it sound like they didn't do their improvements. So this year we're removal and repave of 7 city streets throughout the city. Those include Rosemont from Shannon Lane down to Summit. So really basically where the bike path currently ends. There's some tapering and various things that'll match into that. That's needed. It was decided not to wait for the various pieces of redevelopment to come in before that gets paved. That's a heavily traveled street and it's in pretty bad shape. Hidden Springs, a couple years ago, we went out to do some pavement repairs and crack sealing. But it turned out that one pavement repair turned into the next one, and pretty soon we were just repairing the whole street. So it was decided to wait, but that one's going to struggle making it through another winter. Santa Anita and Rosemont right here at the signal, as you travel north out of the signal, it's really bad shape for about 300 feet. That's going to get repaired. Hillside Drive to the north, there was a subdivision that went on up there for several years. So that'll be repaved from really the subdivision limits to Hillside or to College Hill, I'm sorry. And then College Hill is the one that goes up to Hillside. That's a mess. Lower Mid Hill, that's going to be a partnership with Icon, because Icon's currently working on the water line for us there on Upper Mid Hill. That piece is so narrow that it's just, we've worked out a deal that they're going to, rather than just pave the trench width and wherever that limit is, they're just going to resurface the entire street over to Merrillhurst. And then we'll take it from Arbor to the end there at Hillside. And then finally, a couple more and I'll wrap up. Woodhill Court is off of Lower Mid Hill. It's the lower end of the park, Mid Hill Park. That has grass growing up through the middle of it. It's pretty neat. Upper Mid Hill, again, Arbor to College View. Oh, that's the one I mentioned earlier. Anyway, so we advertised and bid in accordance with the state and local contracting rules. July 17th at 2, we had a bid opening. We had 7 bids. The bid results are attached in the packet. The lowest and responsive bidder was Eagle Elsner. at $1,598,672. We do have past positive experience working with Eagle Elsner. It's been a few years. They're the ones that actually did the road work and installed the traffic signal at Rosemont and Santa Anita. So our recommendation would be to approve the contract award to Eagle Elsner in the amount of $1,598,672. And with that, I can take any questions.
Any questions, or would someone like to make a motion? Seeing no questions.
I'll go ahead and make the motion, Mayor. I move to approve the 2025 road program contract award to Eagle Elsner, Inc. in the amount of $1,598,672. So planned transportation improvements can proceed.
I second.
It's been moved and second to approve the 2025 road program contract award to Eagle Elsner, Inc. in the amount of $1,598,672 so that planned transportation improvements can proceed. Any discussion? Other than thanks for setting this up and doing the best we can to keep our roads improved. Councilor Groner, please.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, how many miles or feet of roadway are involved in this project?
Oh, boy. I'd have to get back to you on that. That was not on the top of my head. I don't think it's in the, I don't have
You
the.
don't need 9 digits of precision there.
Yeah, let me get back to you on that. I don't have the bid tabulations where we break it down by unit cost, but I can.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. Councilor Bright? Okay, you look like you had, she's ready to vote. She's signaling over there. So we'll call the roll.
Counselor Reich,
Yes.
Council President Baumgartner,
Yes.
Counselor Groner,
Yes.
Counselor Bonington,
Yes.
Mayor Bielostowski.
Yes. So the motion passes and the contract award is approved. So we will, city manager may sign the contract.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I was just looking at the last page, 7,400 square yards of full depth repair. So we can translate that using a little quick math by the end of the meeting. 5,100 tons of asphalt.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's good.
But in a system that's more than 150 miles of roadway, this is really a drop in the bucket. Council, you've been talking about funding sources for transportation. It's one of your priorities. This we know is not what the city needs to full extent, but it's important work and some very prominent locations. So we're glad to be able to do it. These are going to be high visibility projects combined with some fairly small neighborhood streets that need the work. So it's a good combination, I think. So we'll continue the conversation about the broader funding need over time.
That stretch on Rosemont Road is going to make a lot of people happy. I'll tell you that. That people have complained about to me before.
I agree.
Sweet. Well, thanks. We'll continue the discussion soon about the funding issues. I'm sure we've got to pencil that in for a follow-up with the Transportation Advisory Board recommendation, et cetera. So get that
All
done
right,
after recess.
thank you.
Thanks. And safe travels on the way to drop your son off at school as well.
Thank you. I got a week still, but yeah,
Oh, sounds good.
we're starting to pack up.
Sounds good. It's exciting. Driving to Kansas, actually, is where his son's going to school. It's pretty exciting. Long drive. Thank you, Eric. So we're on to the agenda item 7C, which is the Community Advisory Group work plans. And now Mr. Digby, who's functioning as the acting city recorder, will now transition to his other role as assistant to the city manager because he did a lot of work on these work plans. I know when I'd pass his desk every once in a while, he would say, I'm working on the work plans. So it's been a long time coming. I'm glad you're here for this. So Mr. Williams, do you have any introductory comments?
No, as Dylan will explain, this is a discussion that goes back a number of months and even farther before that. Council, members of our staff, members of the community, and members of advisory groups have long sought some clear direction It's been difficult to arrive at because there's a variety of groups. It's hard to get the time for council to think about a work program for each one of them. But I really want to appreciate Dylan and the liaisons to the group, some of whom are in the back of the room. Appreciate you joining us. We can definitely bring up our experts on some of the groups if you have questions about the work programs. But I really think this effort is going to is a huge step in the right direction for providing the clarity that we need, so that everyone understands and knows what they're working on, and that if there's things that fall outside these approved work plans over time, the idea would be raise that back up to council and get direction to work on those things. And I think that would be all incredibly helpful. So Dylan will do the staff report. And I will say this transition is extremely hazardous because I'm really poor at this side of the operation over here. So if something goes wrong, we'll see. Dylan may have to run back here. But, so Dylan, thanks for the work and take it here, please.
Yeah, I was trying to decide where to sit. But yeah, John did a pretty good job of covering the intro, which was council's priority was to clarify community advisory work group programs. And as John said, it's something that I think everyone's wanted from staff, council, CAG members. Everyone wants to make sure that we're ensuring the council and community's priorities are aligned with the CAG's work, and everyone's feeling valued, and that everyone's making a positive impact on the community. It seems to be like the overarching thing we're all working towards. We use council's priorities as guiding document, but also use the CAG's annual reports and their current work to kind of make the proposed work plans. I worked with staff liaisons, CAG chairs, and the council liaisons, but I also invited all the CAG members for their input, and if they wanted to come to this meeting, so everyone's aware of the process. So I have 70 CAG work plans ready that were ready for this meeting. I have the other ones kind of still coming in or waiting for some input from chairs and perhaps new staff. It's just something that's important to keep in mind is our limited budget and staff resources to work on these items outside of our regular work. And with our CAG volunteers, we don't want to burn people out. There's a lot of variety in the CAGs. Some want a little more direction than others. Some are pretty well self-sustaining. That's kind of obvious in some of the documents, and that these are living documents. And as John noted, that the CAGs can request a change in writing. I wrote that in each template. Or if they need to have a joint meeting to work with council on the work plan, that's a possibility too. These are work set to kind of align with council's priorities for 2025 to 2027. And it's also the staff reps are here. If we want to go through them, I can pull them up if you want. I'm not sure how council wants to go through them. And welcome to amend them as you need or prioritize, emphasize, however you think is best to give guidance to your CAGs. And that's all I have.
Thank you for that. Sorry, I'm just processing some of the information here on the pages. What process would the council like to follow? Any suggestions from anybody on whether to approve in bulk or go through each one, or any particular changes anybody would like to see? Or should we invite, would Megan and Doug, would you two like to come up since you're here and just provide any comments? I know you stayed with us for this moment, so I want to make sure to give you the opportunity. Okay. Well, we can talk about the Parks and Rec Advisory Board and the Library Advisory Board, since those are under Doug.
Actually, between Dylan and Megan and Doug, you have 6 of the advisory groups, 5 or 6 here. So these folks do a lot of extra duty. Yeah, if you want to come up and just talk generally about where your group is going, what the value of this would be, might be helpful. And we, as you can tell, we didn't plan this.
Good to just. Okay. We'll probably flag some for individual discussion, but mainly talk about approve them in bulk. The kind of.
I think that's great. Any process, we understand it's a lot of information. It doesn't have to be done all tonight. If there are ones where there's questions, we're happy to return. We're happy to extend questions from you to the advisory groups via the liaisons, or you're all also liaison to these groups. So there's a lot of ways that we can get the communication.
Council President has a comment.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you everyone who's worked on these so diligently. And I appreciate mostly the thoroughness of each plan and also the fact that this is can be a working document and a living document that we can make changes to. I'm personally happy to discuss them, but I'm also comfortable doing a bulk approval, just to put my 2 cents in there. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, any additional comments or questions or? I'd like to raise a couple of issues with the city council on a couple of these. I'll just do that for discussion. The CCI, which is Council President's group, they have sent us a letter and been very engaged. And I feel like their work plan kind of reflects what they're asking for in their letter to city council to engage with the neighborhood associations. I wonder if a joint meeting is in order at some point for like a 30-minute discussion or just with the CCI to kind of make sure that they feel, because there's a couple of questions here that were posed diligently by staff about ways we'd like the CCI to support the CAGs and neighborhood associations. And I wonder if that's something for a collaborative discussion with some of the interested parties like Mr. Ginnott and Ms. Knight.
I think that's very appropriate from what I've observed in the meetings.
Okay. So rather than trying to answer those questions today, we will work with the city manager and schedule a short discussion with the CCI in the coming months, but we'll get their work plan approved so that they can start their outreach activities. But it sounds like there's some questions they might need to have answered about. And I'm not sure about the NAP meeting with the groups we're talking. So I want to make sure to get that ironed out. And did you have a comment, Councilor Bright?
I was just going to say, as long as both of you are here, was there anything that came up in your discussions with the community advisory groups that you are the liaisons to that maybe got dropped off the list, or some other areas that or are there anything on these lists that are higher priorities than others?
For Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, we're going to be going through these goals in September. We didn't have a meeting in August. And so then we'll be taking the current goals that they have in work plan that's scheduled out monthly and adapting it to this and making some adjustments. So I think our chairs were able to review it. I feel like it's in line with where the board is already going. So I think we're pretty good on that. For the Arts and Culture Commission, Doug is passing the torch over to me. And so I'm picking that up. So some of the questions that came out, Doug's had created a really great platform with that group to organize them. And so I'm just picking up where he left off. And if you look at, it looks very much in line with your proposal here that we have set forward. And then if you look at 5 through 8, those are actually art programming, which I'm hoping to kind of peel out separately and figure out how we can continue to move those forward with what Doug has started with the library, continue over to Parks and Recreation. And that's really our education and community outreach. And they're doing a fantastic job on that. So want to keep that momentum going as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think thank you, Megan, for covering arts and culture. I think, again, they really are interested in doing programming, but we're very excited to get a art installation accomplished with the bike kiosk. I know they're looking forward to working more of the percentage for the arts and doing some more of those kind of things, which will give them opportunities to meet with you and speak with you about their plans so that they're in unison with what you want. I think with the library, again, they're continuing to do good work. We work off of policies and other things. And I noticed that from what you're asking for from the council seems appropriate, especially in regards to equity and inclusion and being more continuing to work in that area, which we do a lot of in the library. One of the things that we're going to be proposing in the next 6 months or so is to go fine free at the library, which in concert with the city of Wilsonville, so we can be across the whole school district. It's Lake Oswego is going that route, as well as Milwaukee and Molalla. And so we want to join in those efforts in doing that, which we think is really the biggest component of that is equity, and for our underrepresented and marginalized communities, especially an opportunity for us to help with them and also align with the goals that the council has for equity and inclusion.
Council President. please.
Oh, thank you, Director Erickson. Just wanted to flag for anyone listening if there might be a financial impact to the city to going fine-free. I'm in support of it, but I'm just wondering if people listening might have that question.
Yeah, so to answer that, there's a small one, but since the last 10 years, we've made a very concerted effort in trying to create opportunities and places for people to be able to especially return their materials. As you know, anyone can get a library card in our city, regardless of age or resources, but not every person is able to actually get to the library or return to the library in time. So you think of children. So we placed returns at every single school. We have 5 returns across our community which are in our neighborhoods. And so that has really reduced our fines as far as collecting. Now, what I think the most important thing is this doesn't mean you get to keep anything that you check out. If you don't return it or you damage it, you will still be charged for those infractions. But as far as fine goes, what we see is it's a very, very minor, I would say in the $3,000 to $5,000 amount that we collect at this point throughout the year. And we do know our neighbors to the north of us, Fort Vancouver, which is Clark County's library system, has been fine-free for 50 years. And they've done a very good job at keeping that going, as well as our neighbors, Multnomah County and Washington County are also fine-free. So as Clackamas County, we're a little bit behind on that, but we're trying to do that in a way that represents equity.
Thank you so much for taking the initiative for that.
Did you have one more group that you wanted to discuss or?
I think just to, again, maybe Councilor Bonington will want to speak. We were both at the Neighborhood Association Presidents meeting. I think there's some clarity with the CCI and the Neighborhood Association Presidents would be helpful for them to understand their roles. But that was the only thing I would say about that. But I think that covers the areas that I work with.
Sounds good. One question that comes to mind about the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, we've had some internal staff conversations about the Parker Road property that the city has and doing something cool potentially with that and what different ideas have come up. It's not really mentioned in the work plan as a priority, but perhaps that's something that after you talk to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, we can amend the work plan to make sure that that's called out, because we're kind of talking about potentially kind of pivoting away from the rec center idea and maybe into something smaller, but something that could really enhance the site. So I don't know how that
Absolutely.
could work its way into the plan some way. I don't want to propose it now, but just flagging
Yeah.
that.
I think they'd be really happy for that too, trying to figure out that next launching off area of how to create that community gathering space, and then looking at how to reactivate that group of citizens who are really active in the recreational feasibility study at the beginning, to be able to tap into them for potentially other opportunities at Parker Road. Will be really exciting to vet out. So it's really nice to have it as a goal so we can look at other options that may be able to use that area.
So perhaps after you check in with the group, we can amend this list to make sure that that's
Absolutely.
something related to that concept is on there.
Definitely.
Councilor Bonington, please.
I had another one that maybe Parks should be working on, which is when ODOT is finished with the bridge project. There's some discussion about how that's supposed to be put back or reestablished.
For Westbridge Park, is that
Yes,
correct?
exactly. So it might be good to have the advisory board ahead of the game on that and be prepared to talk about it.
Thank you for raising that. The liaison to Parks Board, thinking sharply tonight. Thanks. We can tweak the list to add that, and you could discuss that with the group if they're okay with that.
Yes, definitely.
Any other comments on the list? Just other than, again, thank you to all the staff that put all the time in to compile these and get them appropriate and ready for adoption. And I think, and what we're gonna, obviously there's some that weren't quite ready tonight, Transportation Advisory Board, Economic Development Committee, and Utility Advisory Board, which we will adopt at our next meeting if they're ready after some further staff work. So with that, I don't know if we have we do have a motion. You can just read the motion and then read the groups that we're approving. I suppose that's appropriate just for the record.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the Community Advisory Group 2025-27 work plans as provided or amended for the Arts and Culture Commission, Committee for Community Involvement, Library Advisory Board, Planning Commission, Parks and Recreation Board, Sustainability Advisory Board, and the Youth Advisory Council.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Community Advisory Group 2025-27 work plans as provided for the Arts and Culture Commission, Committee for Community Involvement, Library Advisory Board, Planning Commission, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, Sustainability Advisory Board, and the Youth Advisory Council. Any discussion from the city council tonight on this? So we've had a good discussion prior to the motion, so everybody seems, I'm seeing nods, so we will move to a roll call.
Council President Baumgartner,
Yes.
Mr. Gruner,
Yes.
Councilor Bonington,
Yes.
Councilor Reich,
Yes,
Mayor Bielostowski.
Yes. So those work plans are approved, and we will revisit the other remaining three at earliest convenience in September. And thanks again to staff. And thanks for staying into the evening to be with us.
And Megan, if you could stay for just one more moment. Nothing bad. All good?
Okay, we've now going to transition to the city manager report.
Yes, I'll change the order so that Megan doesn't have to stay through the entire city manager report, which can be a grueling process. But I do want to say that it's still summer here in West Lynn, even though teachers and students are starting to think about binders and paper clips. But summer means events in our parks. And I was going to highlight, in fact, maybe I will, since I have the dates right in front of me. But having Megan here is a great opportunity to thank the Parks and Rec Department for the events that they put on that draw thousands of people to West Lynn parks, the Old Time Fair, the movies, the concerts. It's a tremendous amount of work, and when you see the back of the house on these events, it's tremendous. There's a I don't know what you would call it. There's a thing up on the wall outside Megan's office that has a work program. It's been up there for months, and the staff has been working on all the logistics, and it's really super cool. So I just wanted Megan to hear me say that, and make sure I've got it right. Tomorrow night we have Princess Bride movies in the park. We've got 3 movies remaining: Princess Bride, Snow White, and Wild Robot. So those are Tuesday nights at 8:45, and then we have music in the park, and we have 3 of those left. The band this week is Roll On. I actually don't know what kind of band that. Alabama Cover Band. Yeah, turn on the mic for that.
Alabama Cover Band.
Alabama Cover Band. Those are at 6:30 on Thursdays. So really cool event.
Mr. Williams, can you clarify which parks those are at? Just for the
The movies are in Willamette Park, and the music is right here next door to us in Tanner. And then we've got the Classic Car Show coming up in BACC. That's next week at 11 a.m. on Tuesday.
Yes,
I
on
think that's
Tuesday.
right. So if you just think about all that and the small staff that we have putting these events on, it's really super cool. And I hope the entire community comes out in manageable numbers to these events and takes advantage of what we got here, because it is really super cool. And Megan, if you've got other things on your mind about these events, we would love to hear it.
Well, we're expanding our parking at Tanner Creek after the huge success with Johnny Limbo and the Lugnuts, so that's going to be great. And then also just to put in your mind, we're planning fall now. So as they're doing these summer concert series, we're already getting ready for fall programming, the fall brochure and fall events. So staff, I cannot thank them all enough for all the hard work they do. It's quite impressive and great heart they give. So thank you, John. Really appreciate it.
You bet. And with Doug still here, usually I talk a lot about library events. There are a lot of cool library events. There's the collab, there's the Stormwater celebration tomorrow, is that right? Down at the fields, the Ridge. So that's really good. And if you look at the calendar, there's all sorts of cool things coming up at the library. You've got the Take and Make, you've got author talks. So there's a lot of things happening for West Lynn families to take advantage of, and I appreciate both of you for doing work you do.
Council President, please.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Williams, but before Megan, before he moved off away from parks, I wanted to thank Megan specifically for how wonderfully the city takes care of the community garden, and let you know that everybody is excitedly harvesting and growing lots of things at the community garden, and with much thanks to the city supporting us.
It's our community garden liaison right here. It's another title she has in addition to all her other boards. Thanks.
We'll have a community
Agreed.
garden work program for you to carry out.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you to both of the directors for all of their work. Okay, Mr. Williams, you can continue.
Okay, I will. So this is the time of the year when I like to remind you, after tonight, you only have 4 business meetings left in 2025. So it's the calendar is relentless. We'll take in a recess in the rest of August, and you have 3 meetings scheduled in September. September 2nd, reminder that meeting is a Tuesday because of Labor Day. So September 2nd, 1 o'clock work session. We'll have West Director Greg Geist here to talk about the state of the district. Eric will be back talking about sewer SDCs. And then we'll hope to consider adoption of the sewer SDCs at the next meeting. We have Megan will be here for the tree code technical amendments, which has been undergoing some public outreach opportunity. And the main event, time-wise, probably be more discussion about the city's long-range budget needs, continuing that conversation that you started in July. The business meeting is September 8th. We have a adoption proposed for a couple of those and a couple of other items, and then a work session on the 15th. So that's your upcoming meeting calendar. Mayor, looked like you had a question.
Oh, no.
No?
No. I just, on the meeting times, I am starting law school all of a sudden in about a week. And so I've debated with the idea of potentially asking, we've talked about in the past at a council meeting on Tuesdays instead of Mondays. And there seemed to be some receptiveness from the staff side to have that Monday to prepare for meetings, from the city council side as well. But I just wanted to flag that and kind of, I don't know how to discuss it with everybody, but see if folks are open to that potential change, which would kind of be, we've always had meetings on Mondays. So I don't want to, if I'm rocking the boat too much by bringing that up, I just wanted to see what people thought about that. And Councilor Groner's mentioned in the past, he needs to have consistency for his tutoring schedule and his schedule, and folks need consistency. So I don't know what the sort of outreach we'd want to do before we do that, or even to go about that process, but I wanted to flag that. All of a sudden it has come up, and then we're off this month. So next we'll meet, I'll be at schools. Just flagging, do people have a strong preference on which day of the week we meet?
I'm okay on Tuesday.
Councilor Button.
Yeah, it hasn't been a problem before, but typically offers on homes are due at 5 p.m. on Mondays. So moving it to a Tuesday might prevent that from ever being a problem for me in the future.
And then Councilor Bright, you've brought up there's some conflicting neighborhood association meetings, sorry, and I don't want to step on any toes. with you,
So
but-
yes, the Robinwood Neighborhood Association meets on the second Tuesday, and the Bolton Neighborhood Association meets on the third Tuesday. So if we had our meetings on those days, that would perhaps preclude any of those members from attending. But we don't often see them at our meetings anyway, and so I don't know if that would be a problem.
Any thoughts from you, Council President? Not to put you on the spot, you don't have to express an opinion.
I don't foresee having a problem making that change.
And is there any outreach we should, Mr. Williams, how do you feel?
Mayor, I just want to make sure, it sounds like you're talking about not just the daytime work session, but all 3 of your regularly scheduled meetings would be moving to Tuesdays.
In an ideal world, that would be.
Yep. Well, I think.
But I don't want to rock I don't want to cause any problems either.
It's the council's decision to make. The outreach, I think, would be voluntary. I don't imagine, other than the neighborhood and advisory group meetings that you've brought up already, I don't imagine that the public will experience much of an impact from this. Could be wrong, and I expect to receive an email about that. But you could either make a decision tonight, or we could put together a little bit of information for you, and you could make a decision in September.
That's fine. Okay, we can do that. There's no rush on that. No rush on it. So we can
Okay.
put together some information and make a decision in September.
We can we can include some language from the charter and the council rules, just so you have the context for a decision you would make.
We could even do a little outreach too, to see if there's any, how that would go. But most other cities meet on Tuesday or Wednesday, so then that gives everybody an extra day on Monday anyway. So I've been meaning to do this for years, to talk about it at least.
Okay.
So thank
So
you.
we'll schedule the discussion in September. I'll add that to the agenda.
Thanks. Okay,
I had one more thing on
Please.
the city manager report, which is that our new community development director, Steve Coper, is starting tomorrow. It'll be his first day of work. Steve comes to us from Tualatin, previous experience in Clackamas County and Happy Valley. So he's well versed in land use, economic development, housing issues from the region. You remember we discussed in the budget process how we cobbled together the position. It's not a net add of position to the city, and it's not a net add of management versus labor. And so it's a great solution. It's a position we haven't had since I became city manager, and we haven't had dedicated since for almost 9 years now. I did it dedicated for 1 year before I added the deputy city manager to my title. And I think in a lot of ways, this is a perfect time to be able to do this. With the Vision 43 and waterfront plans reaching the stage that they're at, we'll be looking a lot to Mr. Coper to think about implementation. What do we do with these next steps? This urban renewal conversation we had tonight, housing that we might want to do in these areas. All of these things will benefit from having a dedicated staff position. And we're really super excited to have him. We'll certainly bring him to council, and we'll arrange meeting opportunities for all of you. The community development director, the main part of the work is managing the planning department, the building department, and the economic development function. As I enjoyed when I was community development director, you are the economic development department while you do the rest of your job. And so it's a great combination. It's a cool job. And I really appreciated the candidates that we had offer and express their interest, and we're excited to have Steve start. The last thing I will say, and this is not a competition, but he does have a JD from Lewis and Clark. So, but his main job will be community development. He's not hired to work in the city attorney department. So, but it's a great complement to the skill set. So look forward to having Steve attend upcoming council meetings and be part of the discussions like the one you had tonight. And that is all I have for you. I wish all of you a very pleasant and restful August. We have almost a month until your next meeting on September 2nd.
thank you, and good reminder about the calendar and how we've got 4 business meetings left. We can always call special meetings, but we've got some exciting topics we've been thinking about and talked about. We had that good staffing discussion and about the city staffing needs and the budget outlook, and we're going to continue that in September. So anything else for the good of the order? And Mr. Williams, we're very glad to have you back from your trip. Nothing else. Okay, after a nice 2-hour discussion tonight, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your month of August.